Welcome, this is section 9.6 and we will be working more into differentials. But before I go ahead and start, it's very important you have your definitions, you read the textbook, you look at the examples. That way it's much easier for you to comprehend your homework problems. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look. If y is equal to f of x, it's a defined differentiable function. Then the differential dy or df is defined as the product of f of x, f prime of x and d of x, where dx is equal to that little triangle x symbolically, and this is your formula where dx is equal to, and you would say, Miss, what does all of this mean? I have no idea. Well, let's get there. So in calculus, when you talk about the derivatives or the differential equations, it's nothing but the rate of change. So you have a function y is equal to f of x, right? And now if you're finding the differentiation or the differential or the derivative of this function, that means you're trying to find the rate of change of this function with respect to x. D stands for the difference in y and d stands for difference in x, gives you the f prime or the derivative of x, which is the four-step process. Now this is exactly what they're telling you. They're telling you, hey, the difference, the rate of change of y with respect to rate of change of x is nothing but your differential or the derivative of f of x. Now if you have to calculate dy, all you have to do is cross multiply. Your dy is f prime or the derivative of x times d of x. And here d stands for difference. D stands for difference. So this is nothing but this little triangle, which is delta y. And you can rewrite this as delta x. So the difference in y divided by the difference in x gives you f prime. So this dy is nothing but the difference. Okay, now having said that, let's take a look at the two important formulas. Let me erase this one. Your first important formula is going to be dy is f prime times d of x, like we just saw here. And your delta y is f of x plus delta x minus f of x. Now I say, Miss, what is this? Remember what dy is. dy is the difference in y. That is, what's the difference in y? Y is nothing but your function f of x. So your f of x at f of x plus delta minus f of x. This is like y2 minus y1. Okay, so again, this is nothing but the difference in y. And how do you get the difference in y? Y is nothing but the function of x. So you plug in your x and get your difference in y. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and take a look at the first problem here. Again, I have the answers here so you can see that the answers match. Let's take it step by step. So I have a function, f of x, which is equal to 7x power 4. And they ask me to find delta x or triangle x or this delta y. And they say find the difference in y, difference in x. And they gave me two values. This is x1 and this is x2. Now, I'm not going to complicate this one. I'm going to make it so simple. They're asking me for triangle or the delta x. Did you all notice how perfect triangle I made? It's nothing but the difference in my x's. So that's x2 minus x1. The change in x. I have two x's. What's the change? The x changes from 2 to 6. So 6 minus 2, which is 4. See, at the beginning your x was 2 and later the x became 6. So what's the change? The change is 4 units. And that's exactly what you got. Now, how do I find delta y or the triangle y? Where is it? Yep. That's nothing but y2 minus y1. So when the change of x is x2 minus x1, the change of y is going to be y2 minus y1. Now, how do I get y2? Very simple. I do have the function f of x. So my y2 is going to be f of x2 to the power 4. My y1 is going to be f of x1 to the power 4, which is 7 times 6 to the power 4. This is 7 times 2 to the power 4. And this is Putting in the calculator, 9072, and this is 1112. And what's the difference between y2 minus y1? The difference in y. Subtract both of them, not both of them, subtract one from the other, and I end up with 8960. I want you to pause and take a look, plug it into your calculator to see if they match. And they do. So keep it very simple. When they're asking for the difference in y, I simply plug in my x values to get that respective function value and find the difference. Now, what did they say? They said, hey, after all of that, you'll still have to find the rate of change, triangle y, or the difference in y over difference in x. What is my difference in x? Right here, which is 4. What's my difference in y? Right here, which is 8960. And when I divide, I get 2240. Bingo. That is my answer. All right. Now let's take a look at the next question. Again, pause if you have any questions, rewind, play, and then just comment in the comment section below so I can see what questions you'll have. And let's move on to the next one. Where is the next one? Yep. So they said find dy. I'm going to go back to my basics here. dy by dx is nothing but my f prime of x. So my dy, you have to memorize this. You can have a note card, you can write it on that. Dy is nothing but f prime times dx. So note this formula down. Let me note this formula down. So when you all are working, you always have this with you. Okay. Now that I did that, let's go back to the question. They asked me to find dy, but the first step is to find my f prime. So I'm going to write my function here. Y is equal to 35 plus 14x minus 4x cubed. Did I tell you all I enjoy doing derivatives a lot? So let me expand this one so we can do step by step. So my first step is to find my f. Once I have the answer, you'll see how simple it is. My first step is to find the derivative. Taking one step at a time, derivative of a constant is a 0 plus 14 comes down. Remember, derivative of x is always a 1, so times 1 minus 4 comes down. Derivative of x cubed from the previous sections, it is n, which is the power 3 times 3 minus 1. That is going to be, I'm not going to write down the 0. 14 minus 4 times 3 is negative 12 times x squared. So this is my derivative. Once I have this, my dy is very simple. From the formula, this is simply f prime times, I'm going to stick this little dx here with a different color so you all can see. And that's my final answer. Let's see if that matches. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, it does. Okay, simple. First find your derivative and then multiply it with dx, and that gives you your dy. All right, but make sure you write down this formula so you understand. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. Swiping to the right. Given problem like this, again, they're asking me to find dy, so I know I have to find my derivative first. But because of these parentheses, they try to confuse us, but let's not get confused. Let me just multiply this one. This is x cubed times 15 is 15x cubed minus x cubed times negative x over 9 is x power 4 over 9. My step 1 is to find my f prime, or the derivative of x. How do I find that derivative of 15x cubed? 15 stays 15. You know what? Let me bring all of this down here and move this up here and then expand this one. Let me write down the function. What was the function? I think I missed the function is right here. Okay, this is my function f of x. So my first step is to find the derivative. 15 comes down as 15. And derivative of x cubed, you should know this by now. It is, yes, 3 times x to the power 3 minus 1, very good, which is 2. Now minus 9 stays as 9, that's a constant, that doesn't bother me. So 9. Derivative of x power 4, you should know this by now, which is 4, very good, times x to the power 4 minus 1 is 3. Now let's go ahead and simplify. 15 times 3 is, as far as I know, it is 45. X squared minus 4 over 9, I'm not going to bother simplifying, it's 4 over 9 x cubed. So I did find my derivative. That is very good. That's my first step. My first step is done. And to find dy, what do? I am just going to bring down my derivative. And then I'm going to times it with my dx. Let's see if the answer matches. Dun, 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 dun. And there you go. Fair enough. All right. Maybe for next time I should have some drum roll, so you'll so I can catch your attention. All right. Let's see. Once this is done, let's move on to the next problem. As soon as you see a problem, I know you'll be like, oh my gosh, what is this? So please do not panic. Take a step back, read what they're asking you, because the goal here is to always confuse y'all, and that's exactly what they're doing. They want to test to see, do you all think critically? So let's take one step at a time and see what this is. It says, find the indicated quantities of the function f of x is equal to 2x squared. If you notice, they always write down this one. They say y and f of x, because y is my f of x. So you should by default keep that in mind. They're asking me to simplify f of 1 plus the triangular delta x minus f of 1 over the delta x. Let's go ahead and do it step by step. I am going to have my space right here. I'm going to draw a straight line, and that should become a straight line. So I have my function f of x is equal to, let me make sure I have the right function, 2x squared. 2x squared. Now what they're asking me to find is, they said find f of, I forgot, 1 plus delta x. And they asked me to subtract this from f of 1. So I'm going to find each of these functions separately so I can show you. This is my function f of x. So how do I find this f of 1 plus delta? Simply plug this in place of x. Right? So this is 2, but instead of x, what do I have now? I have 1 plus that little triangular delta x whole squared. And again, don't get confused. This is simply, you're going to expand this one. Let me move this to the bottom here so I have some space. This is simply 2. When I expand this, this is 1 plus delta x times 1 plus delta x. That is 2. 1 plus 2 delta x plus delta x squared. When I distribute the 2, it's going to be 2 plus 4 delta x plus 2 delta x squared. And now I have to find my f of 1. So how do I find my f of 1? My f of 1 is simply plugging in 1. So 2 times 1 squared, which is 2. And what did they ask me to do? They said, hey, go ahead and subtract these 2. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to change the color here. It's going to be, I don't know if this is going to be visible. F of 1 plus delta x minus f of 1. So let me subtract this. I already know what my f of delta x is, and I already know what my f of 1 is. All I have to do is subtract both of them. I'm going to do it right here. So it's 2 plus Never mind, I know what the next step is going to be, so I need some space. So 2 plus 4 delta x plus 2 delta x squared minus 2. And now let's see if we can cancel. Positive 2, negative 2, boom, cancel. And what did they ask us to do? They said, hey, divide the whole thing with delta x, right? They said divide the whole thing with delta x. Let me take you back to the problem. Dun, 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 dun. They said find f of 1 plus delta x, subtract that from f of x, and then find delta x. And again, this is that 4-step process. I'm going to divide the whole thing with delta x. If you have followed my the previous videos, you know, what do? I divide each and every term with the denominator, so I just do not confuse myself. Delta x cancel, delta x and delta x squared cancels, and I'm left with delta x. And now this is going to be 4 plus 2 delta x. Let's see if that matches. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Let me bring this down here so you can see. Yes, the answer matches. I'm going to go ahead and put this back here. Now, what did they ask us to do? They said, hey, once you find that, they said, go ahead and see what happens when delta x approaches 0. That means all they're saying is, good job that you found this. Now, once you find this, go ahead and plug in your limit delta x goes to 0 for 4 plus 2 delta x. Your limits come into picture here, which is going to be limit x to the 0 4 plus limit, I think 2 comes out, it's a constant, delta, oh, I forgot a delta x goes to 0, delta x. Limit of a constant is a constant, doesn't matter where delta x goes because I don't have any delta x in there. And when limit delta x goes to 0, delta x is 0, 2 times 0 is 0. So my limit is 4. And now let's see if this matches 4. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah, right here. 4. This is exactly what we got. Okay, so step by step, pause the video, see if you want to go back, you can, and then make sure you work this out. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the next problem. Let's see. Is this the last one? No, we have one more. Now this question says, again, they kind of keep rewriting it. Y is equal to f of x. I do have a function x cubed minus 3x plus 2. They said find dy, find delta y, find x is equal, given x is equal to 3 and delta x is equal to 0.1. Okay, very good. So let me make this very simple. When they say x is equal to 3, that means they're saying, hey, your x1 is 3. What is your x2? Your x2 is when it goes from x1 to x2, right? So your x2 is simply 3 plus this little delta, 0.1. Your x2 is 2.9. So your x1 and x2 is 3 and 2.9. Now if you subtract x1 and x2, you will get your little difference in x. Okay, that is negative 0.1. That's how you should see. And they say find dy, find dy and find delta y. All right, but you know the first step. Let's go ahead and do this right here. I'm going to rewrite my x1 or my x. They gave me my x is 3 and they gave me my delta x is negative 0.1. So you see if the delta or the difference is positive, that means your x is increasing. If the difference is negative, then I'm going to change this color here. That means my x1 is 3 and my x2 is 3 minus 0.1, which is 2.9. Okay, so this is what you should just look at it as the change from one x to the other. And what was my function? I don't remember. Function f of x was x cubed minus 3x plus 2. Let me cross check so I don't re-record. Very good. Step 1, find my f prime of x. x3 is what? You should know this by now. 3x squared. Ooh, wrong. Okay. Derivative of -3, I bring down -3, and derivative of x is always 1. And derivative of a constant is 0. So I'm not going to write this one. Actually, you know what? I'm going to write it 0. So this is going to be 3x squared minus 3. That's my f of x, f prime of x, sorry. And now they said find dy. Remember what dy is. dy is nothing but f prime of x times d of x. So this is 3x squared minus 3 times d of x. Very good. That's your dy. Let's see if that's... But the dy is given to me as -2.4. Of course, because do I have my dx? Do I have my x value? Yes. What is this little x here? 3. Remember what dx is? Dx is nothing but your difference in x, which is -0.1. So do not get confused. They can say dx or this little delta x, which is the same thing, the difference in the x's. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this one. And now let's plug in 3 times, this x is 3, as we see, this little, where is it? This little x is 3. So I'm going to plug that in there. 3 squared minus 3. And then this little dx is my delta x, which is negative. Don't forget the -0.1. And now 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 minus 3 is 24 times -0.1, which is -2.4. And let's see if this matches. Tin, 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 drum roll. Yes, -2.4, which is right here, matches with my -2.4. Now my next step is to find that little delta y. Now I say, Miss, how do I find delta y? That's nothing but the difference in y's. So let's see what the difference in y's are. This is where this one comes in handy. This little delta y, you can go back to the formula, which is x plus delta x minus f of x. So my f of x was 3, the delta x was -0.1 minus f of 3. This is f of 2.9. What's going on? F of 3. Okay. How do I find f of 2.9? Remember what f of x is? F of x is x cubed minus 3x plus 2. Let me cross check. Yes. So my f of 2.9 is 2.9 cube minus 3 times 2.9 plus 2, which is, let me plug into my calculator. Dun, 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 dun. $17.689. Now, what is f of 3? Which is 3 cubed minus 3 times 3 plus 2. 3 cubed is 27 minus 9 plus 2, which is 20. So f 2.9 minus f3 is 17.689 minus 20, which is -2.311. And now let's see if this matches. Where is it? Dun, 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 dun. Yes, it does. Right here. Your delta y. That's right here. Okay. Remember, dx is the difference in x. dy is the rate of change with respect to x. And that delta y is the difference in y. Okay, and again, all these formulas are in there, so this is something you have to write down when you're taking a test. And also the other formula, dy by dx is f prime of x. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to the next problem. Use the differential approximations in the following problem. A company will sell n units. I'm going to highlight the stuff that I think is important, okay? N units of products after spending X thousand in advertising as given by, this is the function, n is equal to 70x minus x squared, and x is between 5 and 35. Okay, so the amount of money they spend is between 5,000 and 35. Remember, x is in thousands. So if I say 5, that means it's 5,000. If I say 35, that means it's 35,000. Approximately what increase in sale will result by increasing the advertising budget from 15,000 to 16,000 and from 20,000 to 21,000? So they're asking us for rate of change. Let's see what they're looking at. They said find the differential of dn. Okay, so let me write down my n is equal to, I have no idea what it was, 70x minus x squared. 70x minus x squared. Keep in mind x is in thousands. So if I say 2, it's 2,000. If I say 3, it's 3,000. If I say, I don't know, 5, it's 5,000. Okay, so first they're asking us to find the differentiation of n, dn. Very simple, I know that. 70 comes down as 70. Differentiation of x is 1. I'm not going to write that down. Let's say 1. Minus comes down as minus. Derivative of x squared is 2x. So when I rewrite it, it is 70 minus 2x. Very good. That's the rate of change of n. Okay, dn. Oh, I forgot to put. This is dn by dx. So my dn is 70 minus 2x times dx. I forgot to put that. Okay. Now, once I know this, again, keep in mind, what are they giving me? They gave me a function and they're asking me to find the rate of change of the product when the budget changes. So they're giving you rate of change. Rate of change is nothing but your derivative or your differential equations. Now let's see what they want. They said, approximately what increase in sale will result in when you're increasing the budget from 15 to 16,000, 20 to 21,000. Let's take a look. So I have two steps to answer here. So budget changes from 15,000 to 16,000. So as you can see, this is x1 and this is x2. But remember, this is x is in thousands. So I can't say 15,000. I have to say 15. That means 15,000. And your x2 is 16. Or it's from x to x plus delta x. Okay? So your x value, the basic value is 15. And what's the difference between 15 and 16? 1. So your dx or your delta x is 1. That means they're asking you when the budget goes from 15, it increases 1 unit to 16, what's going to happen to your dn? Let's go ahead and plug it in. dn is equal to 70 minus 2x dx. Now you say, Miss, how do I know 15 is x? Always your initial value is your x, and the increase from 15 to 16 is 1,000. But remember, x is in thousands, so I take 1. So that little dx is 1. Your x is 15. Now 15 plus 1 gives you 16. Initially it was 15. It went up 1. Now it became 16. And now that's what you're trying to find out. So this is 70 minus 2 times 15. The change is 1. So this is 70 minus 30 is 40. So the change in number of units when your budget goes from 15 to 16 is 40 units. So you'll produce, or what is it? Are they manufacturing? Yes. You will sell 40 units. Okay? Now let's see what happens when the budget goes from 20,000 to 21. Okay. The budget goes from 20,000 to 21,000. So you have x1, x2. Initially, your initial value is always your x. And the change is x plus delta x. X plus dx. Because it's 20,000, I can't say thousands because x itself is in thousands. So this is 20. So it goes from 20 to 21. What's the difference? It's going from 20 to 21. The difference is 1. So now you have your x is 20, and your dx is 1, and you're finding your dn, which is 70 minus 2 times 20. So this is 70 minus 40, which is 30. So your DN is 30 units. There you go. The increase in sales from increasing the budget is going to be 30 units. So when you're increasing your budget from 15,000 to 16,000, the number of increase in sale is 40. When you increase from 20 to 21, the increase in sale is 30. So if you were a businessman, you'll say, should I put 20,000 or which one is better? 40 units or selling 30 units? Okay. And that's for your last question. And again, if you have any questions, please comment in the comment section below so I can see and answer your questions. Hope this helps.